this topic. I'm starting a law firm with my wife, just as Sita as well. So my wife and I are very interested in discovering our professional person.
Congratulations, and good luck with the firm. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
So you should be half as successful at least as Zita and Carlos. No?
Hopefully, yes. They're definitely role models on this practice.
They certainly are. You know, Carlos, we're running a program. Oh, I'm sorry, Zita.
No, I just wanted to ask again if you could please turn on your camera, because Tony likes to speak to real persons as myself. So if you don't mind, please. Okay. So hello, Sergio. You are here. Where are you? Where are you listening us?
I'm a student from UDEM.
Okay.
So I heard through a WhatsApp group we have that publishes the events from the school. They said there'll be like this event, and I was like, okay, I have time to listen. Let's see what it's about.
Well, you chose the perfect event of the week. I can assure you about it.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thanks to you.
Fabian, hi, how are you? You are muted. We can't listen to you because you're muted.
Sorry, I am fine, thanks. I am very grateful to be here with you, and I am from Monterrey too.
Are you a student?
I am a lawyer too.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have several colleagues from the office too. Miguel, can you say some words, please?
Hello.
Hi, Miguel.
Nice to meet everyone. Carlos and Cita's junior associate. I'm here at the office right now, and it's a pleasure to be able to listen to your advice.
Right.
It's actually true.
Not yet, at least. All right, so if you don't mind, this is 5:05. So I'm sure that there will be more people joining us, but I would like to give the warmest welcome to Tony Yeager-Fine, who kindly accepted my invitation, our invitation of the Mexican National Bar, Chapter Nuevo León. I'm really so honored to be able to have this presentation with you, Tony. I would like to, before starting with this conversation, I would like to read your bio, if you allow me, please. So Tony Yeager-Fine is an assistant dean at Fordham Law School, where she teaches and oversees a range of degree and non-degree programs. Prior to her time at Fordham, Tony worked at NYU, where she taught lawyering and was associate director of the Global Law School program at Coachable, where she worked primarily on commercial and administrative litigation. She is a member of the New York Law Institute of the Bar Association of the City of New York. Tony has written a number of articles and books on a wide range of topics, including Becoming a Lawyer, Discovering and Defining Your Professional Persona, and the US Legal System, The Basics. The latest I really read, and I had the honor of enjoying teaching this book by Tony, so it was really a fantastic experience. She also blogs at yourprofessionalpersona.com. Tony travels extensively and has taught or given lectures in numerous countries around the world. From experience, I know that Tony has a relevant international legal expertise, and her passion for work with universities and international students is a true inspiration for all. When I was preparing this short intro, I went on Amazon because the book Becoming a Lawyer, Discovering and Defining Your Professional Persona is, of course, a book available on Amazon. And you know, Tony, it was so exciting reading the intro about this book, which says that the difference between your success and failure is you. So it's like quite a beginning. Success is not about your degrees or technical skills. It has nothing to do with law at all. A successful professional masters concepts and behaviors not taught in law school. So I'm really very excited what is required to succeed, and how can we define and develop our professional persona and become the best legal professional we are able to. Again, Tony, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Zita. And I just want to say that I'm so proud when I see my students become so incredibly successful. As a lawyer, as the president of the Nuevo León Capítulo of the bar, and as a mother in so many ways. And Zita, I really want to thank you for this invitation. And I want to thank all of you for coming. I know how busy everyone is, and it's starting to be that time of year where I think things are getting really rough. So I really appreciate your time, and I hope you'll enjoy this presentation. I hope you will reach out to me if you have questions or thoughts later. I have my email address here, and you could find me very easily. Just I'm not mysterious at all. You just Google and you'll find me very quickly. And it's really, really an honor. And I suppose I should update my bio to say that I used to travel a lot. I haven't done much traveling, like mostly everybody. But I do have to say, oops, sorry, that one of my most favorite places to go is Mexico. I love Mexico. I love the food, but above all, I keep doing that. But above all, I love the people. And so it's a special joy to see so many of you here tonight and to be with you. So thank you. So whenever I mention this thing called the professional persona, people always say, what is that? What does that mean? And so I've come up with a kind of definition that really is pretty much what Zita said in her introduction. It's a set of attitudes and behaviors that come to define us as professionals and ultimately determine our success. And so it has nothing to do, as Zita said, with technical skills or substantive knowledge. And I think law schools do a pretty good job of focusing on technical skills and substantive knowledge. I think we as managers, I think we as professionals sort of worry a lot about our technical skills and substantive knowledge. And I think that we don't necessarily pay as much attention to these attitudes and behaviors that really form the professional persona. And I think it's an incredibly valuable asset that many of us kind of leave on the table. And so my goal for all of you, whether you're a partner at your own law firm or in someone else's law firm, whether you're associate, whether you're still a student, whether I know that Carlos Jr. is here and he's not even a law student, but he's a student of business, whatever stage of your life you're in, whatever field you're in, that you could take away one or two or three things from this evening's lecture and think about it in a different way. That, you know, Carlos Romero may say, oh, I'm pretty good at that, but this is something I never really thought of. And Miguel says, that thing that Carlos needs to work on, I got that covered, but this other thing that I never really thought about, or I think I could do better, and so on and so forth. So my hope is that everyone can walk away with something that they want to focus on a little bit more. One of the things that I love about this concept of a professional persona is the amount of empowerment it gives each of us. And we live in a world, maybe now more than ever, and certainly as legal professionals, where we don't have control over many, many things. Governments make regulatory decisions, clients do things, your family obligations constrain you in some way, your supervisors. There's sort of very few things over which each of us has complete control. And your professional persona is one of those. And I find that really, really empowering, that I am the only agent when it comes to developing and nurturing and sustaining my own professional persona. And I love having this little corner of the world that's mine, and that no one, people affect it, but no one can control it in the way that I can. And I find that, especially when I feel that there are so many external pressures, I find it very rewarding to have this thing that belongs to me and me alone. Your professional persona is contextual, but there are elements of it that are really transcendent. So what do I mean by that? I mean that whenever we're in a room, whether it's I'm sorry, I have a little cold, but I also got a negative COVID test, so all is well. Whenever you're in a room, whether it's a real room or a Zoom room, you want to look around. Are there people you know? Are there people you're comfortable with? Are they colleagues, or are there people there that are maybe much higher than you in an organization? Are there potential clients? Are there people in very high positions? Are there people from cultures with which you're not that familiar? And so I have to say, I love Mexicans. As I said, I'm very comfortable around anyone from sort of south of Florida. I'm very comfortable with Latinos in general. And, you know, I'm very open, I'm very myself. A few months ago, I had a lecture in Kazakhstan, Zoom lecture, and I thought, oh, I was in Kazakhstan once, but the culture is very different, and I don't know these people as well. And so I tone it down just a little bit. I'm still me, but I want to take stock of who's around the room and the cultural differences. But most of what I'm going to talk about this evening is really transcendent across the full range of cultures, age groups, racial, gender divides, and everything in between. But you do always want to take account of sort of the room you're in. I'm going to tell you a lot of personal stories along the way. Some of them are embarrassing, and the first one is kind of embarrassing. When I started to write this book, I thought this is going to be really, really easy. I've completely figured out how to be a great professional, and all I have to do is sit down and write it down and tell the rest of the world. And the project was actually incredibly difficult. And it was incredibly difficult because, of course, I had not figured out how to be a great professional. I'd figured out certain things, and certain things I feel like I did and do reasonably well. But what I discovered as I was writing this book was how many things I did not do well, how many ways in which I needed to improve, how many things I never even thought of about my own professional persona. And in the beginning, I found that very frustrating, obviously, but over time, I learned to realize how great that was. So that for those of you who are still in school, you're 20, 25, give or take, you have a professional persona that looks in a particular way. It will be different in 5 or 10 years. And it will be different when you're 40 and 50, and I just turned 60 this year. So when you're 60, and what I love about this is you never are done learning. You never are done improving yourself. You're never done figuring out ways you can be better and happier in your life. And so I find that actually really exciting. And the final sort of introductory point I want to make is that your professional persona is really unique to you. It is linked intimately to who you are as a person. And so I don't think of the professional persona being over here and the personal persona over here, more that they're flip sides of the same coin. And in order to have a professional persona that is sustainable and authentic, it really must be linked very intimately to who you are as a person, some kind of authenticity, which is something that we hear a lot about. So my work is divided into 3 main categories, and I'm going to start with foundations of a professional persona. And I've identified these, excuse me, these 4 foundations, sort of bedrock principles of your professional persona. And I want to talk about each of these. Let me just make sure. Yeah, okay. The first is called unconscious incompetence. And this probably requires a little bit of explanation. What does this mean? Well, it refers to the way we learn things. And there's a guy named, I think his name is Neil Birch, and he was in industry probably 50, 70 years ago. He came up with this learning matrix to explain how we learn things. And he described it as something that we're all traveling through this learning matrix all the time. So it's not true that those of you who are students or very young professionals are at the bottom stage and us older people are at the higher stages. No, with respect to different skills, we're all at different stages of that matrix. And so we start at something called unconscious incompetence, which is also known as the happy idiot stage. And I love that description because it's exactly what it is. You are so incompetent, you are so clueless that you either think you would be good at something if you only tried, or that it's not important, or that you could learn it very, very quickly. And this is a very, very bad state to be in, precisely because you're happy, right? The happy idiot stage. You're happy and you have no real incentive to try to find, to try to really discover if you're any good or not. And I'm going to give you an example in a minute that's going to bring all this home. Sorry, I keep doing this. I keep trying to change the size of the Zoom, seeing your faces. And then when you move up to what's called conscious incompetence, you're still completely incompetent, but you're aware of it. And this is a very good stage to be at because you're motivated to learn. You're very uncomfortable with being incompetent, and you're very aware of it. If you keep working, you reach the stage of conscious competence where you can get the job done, but you need to really focus, really work very, very hard. And then you finally reach the stage of unconscious competence, where something is almost like a habit. And habit is the next foundation that we're going to talk about. And excuse me, unconscious competence is where you could do something almost automatically. You've become so adept at it, so skilled at it, that you don't really, really need to think about it. It's almost routine. It's almost automatic. And so my example for sort of explaining these stages, a lot of people in New York use a skateboard, which is weird to me. Why would anybody use a skateboard in a city like this? But people do it. And sometimes you see someone on a skateboard who is so skilled at it that he makes it look really easy, okay? He's, eating a hamburger with one hand, he's texting in another hand, and he's doing turns and flips and tricks, and he could stop when he wants to stop, and he's just really good. He makes it look so easy. Someone like I come along and I look at a guy like that and I say, that doesn't look hard. He makes it look effortless. So this is a true story. About 3 years ago, I went into a sports store and I said, I want to try a skateboard. And the guy looked at me and he said, really? And I said, yeah. So he took a skateboard down for me and I stood on it for a nanosecond. I could not balance at all. And I said to myself, oh, this is really hard. That guy just made it look easy, but it's not easy. He just made it look easy. It's actually really, really hard. At that stage, I flipped from unconscious incompetence to conscious competence. Very, very aware of how difficult this task really was. Now, I jumped off that skateboard and I never went back on. But if I had continued to work on it, I might have eventually reached the stage of conscious competence. And you've seen people like this too. And I see it all the time. They're on the skateboard. They somehow manage to get from A to B, but you can almost see the effort that they have to expend. Real focused effort just to get it done. That's conscious competence. And then eventually you reach the stage of unconscious competence where you do it automatically. Now, how do you move through these stages? There are a number of tools that we use. One is questioning, right? So trying something. I said to myself, that looks easy, stupid idiot, right? Happy idiot. And then I went and I actually tried it. And I said, oh, I get it now. Not so easy. We do it by trying, by questioning, by reflection, by deep, sustained, meaningful reflection. Before we do something, while we do something, after we do something. Lawyers have a bad habit, and I don't know whether it's a constitutional limitation or something in our executive functioning or the fact that we're so busy, we run from one thing to the next. We very often, we do something, we say, oh, that was good, move on. We don't really reflect in a deep, sustained, meaningful way. Obviously, this is a generalization. It's a really, really good investment. Rather than just say, oh, that negotiation went well, or that hearing went well, take a few minutes to think, okay, how might it have gone better? I'm glad it was good, but what if I had done this when he said that? What if I had paused a little bit more after she said something? Was there a micro expression that I missed that was trying to tell me something about what that person was thinking? There are so many ways in which we can reflect in a meaningful way on what we've seen. Another way we learn is by observation and imitation. And we're incredibly lucky as legal professionals to be surrounded by so many smart, talented people. Everything from your professors to your supervisors at work, to your clients, to the people around you, to really observe them. And so you might be tempted to look at Zita and say, well, I want to be Zita. Okay, that's not going to work for so many reasons. But it's also not going to be authentic. So maybe you look at Zita and you say, wow, she has a really beautiful way of presenting and she's so warm and everybody loves her the minute they meet her. I want to understand how she manages to disarm people. People feel so relaxed around her. That's a skill I would really like to have. And maybe you look at Carlos and you say, Carlos is such an organized guy. My goodness, he's starting up his own law firm with his wife. He must be very, very organized to pull that off. I want to understand what's behind Carlos. How does he stay so organized? I meet someone else and I say, that is the most creative problem solver I've ever seen. I want to understand how he comes up with these creative solutions. I want to try to deconstruct this. And in this way, you build sort of a patchwork of your own professional persona from people that you admire and respect. The reverse also is true. I'm laughing because I'm going to tell you a funny story. So I had a boss a few years ago, and he's actually a really good friend of mine. But he was a bit of a micromanager, and I kept thinking, who does he remind me of? Who does he remind me of? And then I realized he reminded me of me, and I thought, okay, this is good for me to see because it's annoying, and maybe I should try to give my team a little bit more space, right? And so you also learn about the sort of behaviors and attitudes that you do not want to emulate, that you want to let go of a little. And a final way in which we learn is by being coachable. And this goes to feedback. This is about openness to feedback, openness to criticism. A person who is coachable, well, let me give you the reverse, okay? I had coffee with an acquaintance before COVID, and she's a lawyer. She was unhappy with her work situation. She wanted advice. So we had coffee together, and I made a bunch of suggestions. And everything I said, she responded to in exactly the same way, and it made me crazy. She said, yeah, but, okay, do you say that in Spanish? Si pero. It drove me crazy, okay? And it left me realizing that she wasn't really interested in my advice. She was really interested in complaining. And I said to myself, not very coachable. What it means to be coachable, I think, is this. It doesn't mean you have to follow every bit of advice that somebody gives you. But if somebody that you trust, or even if you don't particularly trust them, but if somebody gives you some advice, some feedback, at least be open to it, really deliberate on it, really think about it, and decide if there's something there for you to take away from that. Sometimes you might just say, I'm going to reject that person didn't really understand where I'm coming from. But sometimes if you really reflect, you realize that there's something there that might be useful. I think that a big problem for many of us with coachability is that we're probably biologically designed to be defensive. When someone sort of threatens our ego and comes up with a suggestion, comes up with feedback, we're probably in some ways biologically sort of inclined to just say, no, that's wrong, that's stupid, that's not good. But if we can get past that a little bit and say, I at least understand where she's coming from, and I don't necessarily think she's right, but what did I do that made her think that? And maybe there's something I can take away from that. And I think if you leave yourself open to being coachable, leave yourself open to feedback, you can really, really improve. The next foundation I want to talk about is habit. And I have to say, when I started working on this book, I thought habit was really important. By the time I finished, I was convinced that habit is very much at the root of our success. So let's talk about what a habit is. I think most of us understand that habits are things that we do kind of automatically. They have a genuine pattern of regularity. In the US rules on evidence, it talks all about habit. You may have something similar in the Mexican rules of evidence, I don't know, but it's a really useful definition of habit. It's sort of habit evidence is introduced because you do it, you know that happens. And I'll tell you a little bit about my own sort of struggle with some habits. And habits account for something like 45% of what we do every day. And an example is when you go into the grocery, so I buy almond milk, and well, grocery stores in the US, I don't know if it's like this in Mexico, but there's like a million different kinds of milk, right? So I go into Trader Joe and I'm gonna buy my almond milk, and I know about where the almond milk is, and I know what the packaging looks like, and I know the color of the particular almond milk that I like, the unsweetened regular. And I know that it's got this sort of pink. I don't have to read labels, right? You know that you pick things because you're in the habit of picking them. You do things because you're in the habit of doing them. Great habits save you time. Great habits save you energy. Great habits make you happier because they save you time and energy. Great habits make it easier to do more complex things that come up. So, just think about the simplest things that you do every day. When you're a child, it takes some time to learn how to tie your shoelace. If you asked me to tie a shoelace for you now, I can't do it. I can't tell you how, but I could bend down and tie my shoes, right? All of that is habit, and it saves us a humongous amount of time and energy for things that are really more interesting, more bespoke, more complex. But the best thing about habits, good habits, is that good habits lead to more good habits. And science does not fully understand how this works, but there are things called keystone habits, which act as levers for other habits. There's a fantastic book, I don't know if you've read it, it's called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And he talks about many, many studies that they've done over years to show how one good habit builds into many other good habits. So they've done these longitudinal studies. If any of you have children who are teenagers, take note, okay? They did one study of high school kids and who made their beds, and high school kids who did not make their beds in the morning. And they followed them for like 20 years. And they found out that the high school kids who made their bed in the morning went to better universities, got better grades, got better jobs, earned more money, and listen to this, this is crazy, were healthier and were in happier personal relationships, okay? Now, they didn't do all that because they made their bed, but they developed a sense of discipline and a sense of building habits that led to more good habits that enabled them to achieve all this academic, personal, and professional success. So, how do you build habits? It's really hard work. I will tell you a couple of things. One is you have to do it consistently. You cannot have exceptions when you build a habit. I'm going to tell you a story about myself. About, I don't really know, 7 or 8 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, I had some surgery, and it was serious enough that I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't lift anything. I really couldn't lift anything for a number of months. And so I was not doing any exercise at all, and I felt horrible. And I said, gee, I wonder, and I know this isn't really possible in Mexico, it's just an example. I wonder if it's humanly possible to walk to my law school from where I live. Of course, it's humanly possible. It takes about 50 minutes. It's about 3 miles. And so I started walking, and I walked every day, no matter what, no exception. It was raining, I walked. It was cold, I walked. It was hot, I walked. It was snowing, I walked. I was busy, I walked. I was stressed, I walked. I was late, I walked. Whatever it was, I walked. And after, and scientists differ, if it's 30 days or 45 days, it was a habit. So I don't come out of my apartment every day and say, how shall I get to work? Shall I take the subway? Shall I take a bus? Shall I take a car? Shall I walk? That's what I do. I just do it. And it was really hard in the beginning because I wasn't used to it, because I was recovering from surgery. I was not that strong, but I did it, and I forced myself to do it. You really have to commit. So this is why, for example, I don't do New Year's resolutions, right? So I bet everyone's had this experience. You're at some stupid party or bar on New Year's Eve, and someone comes up to you and says, hey, Victoria, what's your resolution? And you come up with something because you feel that you have to come up with something. I'm going to exercise more. I'm going to spend more time with my parents, whatever it is. but you're not really committed to it. It's hard work. You have to really commit. Here's a special way, and this comes from Duhigg, how you can create a good habit. Well, two ideas. Let me give you a different idea first, and then let me talk about the habit loop from Duhigg. One way to build a habit is to attach it to something that you already do. So let's say that you want to work out more. Let's say you want to work out every day. You want to do at least 15 minutes of calisthenics or something. Just attach it to something you're already doing. So you brush your teeth every morning, right? I feel pretty confident about that. That's a habit that we've all built. Why don't you just say, okay, after I brush my teeth, that's when I do my 15 minutes of fitness. Attach it to something you're already doing. Why? Because the brain loves to chunk activity. And it's efficient for the brain and actually builds neural pathways that make that chunking really efficient for the brain. So it doesn't have to think, brush my teeth, spit, rinse, then exercise, and it all fits together. Here's another thing to do, and Charles Duhigg talks about the habit loop. Here's how it works. If you have a habit that you want to change, here's how you do it. A habit loop consists of three things. First, the trigger or the cue. And the example that he gave was a problem that he was dealing with. He was eating cookies every afternoon at 3 o'clock. He would have this mid-afternoon sort of lull, and he would say, I'm going to do this thing I do every day at 3 o'clock. That's the habitual action. He went to the cafeteria in his office and talked to colleagues while eating cookies. Okay. And then he decided, or maybe his wife decided, that he shouldn't be eating all these cookies. So he said, okay, I'm going to keep the cue or the trigger the same. At 3 o'clock every day, I'm going to do something. I'm going to look for a new activity, a new habitual action that will give me some reward that's similar to the cookie, even if it's not exactly the same as the cookie. So the first day he tried eating an apple. Surprise, that didn't work. The second day, all at 3 o'clock at that trigger time. The next day he tried walking around the block. That didn't work. The next day he went to the office of a colleague and they chatted for a few minutes. Bingo, that worked. So he was able to keep the habit loop the same, swapping out one habit for another. A friend of mine told me that she was going home from work. Every day she was drinking beer. And she was like, okay, that's a little much. So she swapped out the beer. When she got home from work, she said, okay, I need something festive. So she swapped out the beer for seltzer waters, flavored seltzer water. And she said, it's not the same as a beer, but it gives me some feeling of satisfaction. And she swapped out one habit for the other. Something that my guess is many of you struggle with, because almost everyone struggles with it, is social media. So what I tell my students, if they're spending too much time on stuff like TikTok or Insta or whatever young people are looking at these days, keep the cue or the trigger the same. But when you have that cue or trigger, instead of going to TikTok or Insta or Facebook, go to LinkedIn and try to build your community a little bit. Maybe it gives you some of that same sort of voyeuristic kind of, I know it's not the same, but some kind of voyeuristic satisfaction, and it's much more productive. Let me say this, habits are better formed when you're young. Why? Because of what I said before. The brain actually develops neural pathways that sort of chunk these activities, these behaviors together. So it is better when you're younger, but there's no time like the present. There's actually an old Chinese proverb that I love. Sorry, I know you're very excited to hear this. And they say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Okay, I wish I did that 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So don't wait another 20 years and say, boy, I wish I did that when I was 30. I was so young then. If I waited, I'd be 100 by the time I get around to habits. So just make up your mind that you want to do something and do it. The third thing is intelligence. And I have to say that intelligence is something that was always very fraught for me, because I always believed, and I still believe this to this day, that when I'm in a room like this, in terms of raw intelligence, IQ, I'm at the low end. I'm not at the low end in the general population. I realize that, and I'm very blessed. But I don't feel that I'm smart when I'm with a group of lawyers or other professionals. And it used to make me feel very insecure. And now it doesn't. And the reason is this. Intelligence is so much more contextual and multidimensional than we used to think it was. It used to be just IQ. Now we understand that social and emotional intelligence are the real drivers of success beyond a certain point. Here's the fact. If you're smart enough to get in and out of law school, you're smart enough. And the differences in IQ that we all have are not going to define our success. What will define our success is social intelligence, people skills, being able to sort of respond appropriately to other people, read their emotions and respond. And emotional intelligence, being able to understand our own emotions and moderate them and respond appropriately. And these, unlike IQ, these are things that we can learn. And so if you are worried about IQ and things like that, just forget about it. You're smart enough. Focus on the things you can really change, your social and emotional intelligence. And unlike habit, this gets easier as you get older. Why? I've been thinking about that. I think it's called maturity. And it's also because you just have that many more opportunities to observe your own behaviors and how they influence people, to observe your behaviors towards people, to understand better what works and what doesn't work, and to sort of see patterns in things. That's just a product of more experience. And so those things do get better as you get older. The fourth foundation is leadership. And I have to say that a lot of times when I talk to young associates or students about leadership, that's when they pick up their phone, that's when they go to the bathroom, because they think, I don't have to worry about leadership until I'm a partner. Okay, well, that's all wrong. Leadership is not about a position. It's about a mindset, a general orientation. And I think this is really, really important because the youngest person on the team, the most inexperienced on the team, still needs to show leadership capability. I'll use an example. I'll turn to someone in the room and I'll say, how do you think this? Do you think this person became, the chairman of the law firm and then woke up the next day and said, oh, I better figure out how to be a leader? Of course not. It doesn't work that way. That he became the chairman of the firm because he's always incorporated the mindset of a leader. So there happens to be a lot of disagreement about what leadership even means. I like to think of leaders as being people who are goal-oriented and know how to achieve those goals. And when I think about goals, I don't think of goals like, I want to make X number of dollars by the time I'm 30, or I want to be partner by the time I'm this age, or I want to have my fancy house in wherever people in Monterey go for their fancy houses on the weekends. It's not those kinds of goals. It's more institutional goals, service goals. What kind of professional do you want to be? What kind of impact do you want to make? What kind of purpose do you want to have? The rest, the money follows, or it doesn't, but it's not, you don't want to be driven by those external rewards. And then that leader knows how to move herself and organizations and people towards those goals. How do you do that? You do that through a range of personal and interpersonal skills that actually look a whole lot like social and emotional intelligence. They're all really, really wrapped up. So always try to think like a leader, have goals, move towards them, and you will end up in high positions and you will end up getting those rewards that you want. The second aspect of my book is about self-management, what I call professionalism from the inside. And this is where I personally experienced a lot of growth in myself when I was working on this book and since then. The first part is about mindset and dispositions, and I always need a cheat sheet when I talk about mindset and dispositions. I think of mindset and dispositions as having three elements, and the first one is about a positive mindset. What is this? This is about first being growth-based. What does that mean? Well, let me tell you what a fixed mindset person is. A fixed mindset person basically says this: I can't do it. I won't get better at this. This is beyond me. The problem with that, as you probably figured out already, is if you believe you can't do something, you're not going to be able to do it. And there's a wonderful quote by Henry Ford. I'm pretty sure it's him. And he said, listen to this, because this is really, really powerful. He said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And I think that's really, really powerful. I was at the gym. I used to do CrossFit, but not when I was young. I did CrossFit like right before COVID. And I did that to build my resilience, which I'll talk about in a moment. But I remember once the coach asked us to do something, and I looked at my partner. We partner up for classes, and I said, I can't do that. And she said, not with that attitude. And I was like, yeah, that's right. Always go in believing you can be better, believing you could do something, because the minute you resign yourself to not being able to do it, you're probably not going to be able to do it. A positive mindset is about optimism. And I don't just mean sort of, is the glass half empty or is the glass half full, but the sort of narrative you tell yourself about your past, your present, and your future. You know, there are these things that happen. And so do you see them as, I always fail, bad stuff always happens to me, life sucks, and I'm gonna die? Or do you say, I've been challenged and I've always gotten through those challenges, and I understand that those challenges have made me stronger. And those challenges, it's not that I'm challenged more than anyone else. To the contrary, I'm pretty lucky, right? Once in a while, things happen that make me, you know, have to, I fail even, not just challenge, I fail. And that's okay, that's part of life. But overall, things are pretty good. There's a big difference in the way, the narrative that you choose to tell yourself. Facts are not really facts. Facts are how we understand them. And that narrative, the sort of, the subjectiveness of that narrative, I think, is really, really important. And this goes right into grit and resilience. So what is grit? Grit is sort of the ability to stick with it day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. You know, we talk about life being short, but our careers are pretty long. And the final thing I want to talk about is resilience. And this is why I joined a CrossFit gym when I was 57, because I wanted to make myself uncomfortable. I wanted to put myself in a difficult situation. What resilience to me is not just falling down and getting up. That's what you do. You fall down, you get up, but it's getting up bigger, better, faster, stronger. And that's what CrossFit did for me. I would go into that gym. You know I'm not young, but you probably can't see that I'm really, really small. I'm physically like pathetically weak. And I would go into that gym every day, and everybody would be like a third my age and twice my strength. And I would go every single day and I would work out with people, and they developed a sense of respect for me because no other 57-year-old was walking around that CrossFit gym. And I developed a huge sense of resilience. And no matter how bad I was, and trust me, I was bad. It's not like I was keeping up with anybody there. It's not like, oh, I was as good as the 20-year-old. No, I was horrible. But I did it. And I walked out of there every single day with my head held high. And I walked out every day thinking, whatever this day brings, I just had a barbell over my head. I'm gonna be able to do whatever this day brings. And so I always urge people to go out of their comfort zones, to do things that they normally wouldn't do, because you then build sort of a memory of doing things that you didn't think you could do. And the next time something comes along, you get a deal and you're supposed to do this ridiculous transaction, you have no idea what you're doing, you say to yourself, you can do this. You're always doing things that you didn't think you could do. And it's really, really powerful. Time management and organization. Look, I struggle with, like everybody else. If anybody has figured out the sort of secret to time management, please give me a call and I'd like to hire you to do some coaching. Let me just give you a couple of suggestions that I've found very helpful. One is to be, sorry, I'm not even close to being done with mindset and disposition. Sorry. One was positive mindset. We talked about that. Second, a commitment to excellence. To really set your mind to doing great work, to be resourceful, to be diligent and dedicated, to exercise willpower, to sort of be able to delay gratification, to be reliable, to be prepared, to be flexible at the same time and adaptable, because in a client services industry, we have to be adaptable and flexible. And to really not just pay attention to detail because you have to, but excuse me, to really take pride in the craftsmanship of what we do, right? To really say, I want this document to look good. I want it represents me, it represents my firm. I want it to look good. I want everything to be perfect. I don't want to just send it off with mistakes or bad margins or things. I take real pride in that craftsmanship that's important. And the third part of mindset and dispositions is character. Are you a person who expresses gratitude when someone does something nice for you? Are you dignified in a way that promotes not only your own professional persona, but the persona of your firm or company or whatever organization you work for and the profession as a whole? Are you humble? I want to say something about humility because I think a lot of us misunderstand humility. I think some of us think that humility is the absence of confidence, but I don't think that's right because I think you have to be confident. You can't, someone goes to, whatever, Victoria, and says, oh, I want you to structure a deal like this. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about, but yeah, I'll take the case. Nobody's going to hire you. But humility, to me, the essence of it is really believing that you can learn from anyone. And I'm going to be a little maybe controversial here, not just your bosses and not just your teachers and people who are more experienced than you, but people with really different backgrounds and experiences. Why? Because we've all been to law school. We all do the same stuff. But if you talk to an Uber driver, or you talk to the guy who you buy coffee from in the morning, or you talk to the person at the drugstore when you're checking out, they have very different experiences. And those experiences give them really different perspectives. And you can learn even more, I think, sometimes from those people. Right before COVID, BC, I was at Clifford Chance in New York, great British law firm with a big New York office. And I met lots and lots of partners. I was giving a lecture on this stuff. And the person that I left with the most sort of excitement about my new relationship with him was the tech guy that set up my microphone and set up the PowerPoint. And I think so often we forget to engage them. But I learned so much from him and I had such a great conversation with him. So if you're really humble, you try to think of ways in which you can engage people with very different backgrounds and experiences. And I think that character is also about having a sense of humor, a sense of elegance, graciousness, going beyond, above and beyond when you have an opportunity to. Okay, back to time management and organization. What's all this about? Well, a couple of things. First, try to be more intentional and deliberate about how you spend your time. And I want you to compare how you spend time with how you spend money. And I think if you do that, if I do that, I know with money, I'm much more deliberate. With time, I'm much more reactive. And I'm not sure that's a good thing. So if somebody came up to me in the street and asked me for $500, I would be like, no, unless they had a knife or a gun. That would be like, no, I'm not going to give you $500. But yet I let people take my time all the time. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be generous. And I'm not saying you shouldn't accept, if Zita calls you and wants you to do something for the bar, you should say yes. But you don't always have to say yes right now. You don't always have to say yes. And this was really driven home to me while I was working on. I was really running late for my deadline. It immediately, who I didn't even really remember. Okay, it wasn't a student like Zita who I know really well, and I would do anything for her. This guy came to me at the very last minute, asked for something, and he's not someone I'd been in touch with. It was a student from 12 years earlier. And I said to myself, what on earth are you doing? This makes no sense. What I should have said to him was, I'd be happy to help you, but not for the next 2 weeks. Email me again in 2 weeks, and then I'll be able to do it. That's okay. It's okay to do that. And I am trying to be better about saying no to things that I'm not really interested in. Just last week, someone asked me for something on a Friday afternoon and he wanted it on Saturday. And again, it wasn't someone I was close to. It came on a Friday afternoon. Are you kidding me? You can't possibly need that on Saturday. And it had to do with a visa application. It can't be that you didn't know you were filing this visa application tomorrow. I don't buy it. And so I said, no. I said, if you could get an extension, I'd be happy to do it next week. And so I just think we should be more deliberate. Now, I want to talk about money a little bit more. My guess is that most of us have some sense of our finances, and we have a sense of what's coming in every month, what our fixed expenses are, what we have left over to, you know, to buy things with, or we might be saving for something, or to go out with friends. And so we have a pretty good idea of our money. And if we were to do a budget, a financial budget, we might see things that struck us as odd. For example, if you did a financial audit and you realize that you were spending whatever the Mexican equivalent of is, say $100 at Starbucks a week, you would say, well, I would say, are you kidding? That's insane. I had no idea I was spending that much money on Starbucks. It's not worth it to me. I love my caramel frappuccino with whipped cream as much as anyone else, but I'm not going to buy them every day anymore. I'm going to maybe just have one on a weekend. It's the same thing with time. We don't really know where our time goes. And so I did a time audit, and it was really illuminating. And I saw things that I said, okay, this may be, some people might think this is a waste of time, but I really like this and I'm going to keep doing it. And other things I said, oh my God, this is way too much time on XYZ. So I would recommend that you do a time audit and try to see where your time is going. But just in general, try to be much more mindful and intentional about how you spend your time. And if you think of time a little bit more like money, that might be helpful. And in fact, time is much more precious than money, because you could always earn more money, right? You could always, you know, Zita could run her law firm during the day, and then at night she could go be a bartender. There's always more money, but but time is time, right? It is what it is, and there's no way to expand it. So we have to make good use of it. My second recommendation is everyone keeps a to-do list. Fine. What I do, I find that there are certain things on my to-do list that never seem to get done. And what I do with those things and other things sometimes is I schedule them in my phone, my calendar. And so I try to schedule things that I'm not getting to, and I schedule them in at times when I think I'll actually be able to do it. So I get up early in the morning, and so I'll say, okay, from 6 to 8 in the morning, no one's going to be calling. My boss is not going to be writing with an emergency. From 6 to 8, I'm going to do that thing. It is scientifically proven that the more you schedule specific things in your calendar, the more likely they are to happen, right? And so try doing that. Another thing you could try when you do that is to break things down into smaller pieces. So when I was writing this book, I would put, 6 to 9 every evening, I would say, write book. And I never did it. And I never did it because it was totally intimidating. And then I got this tip to break things down. So rather than putting in your agenda, work on $3 million deal, right? That's a little intimidating. Write down, do the financing provisions of the $3 million deal. Do the labor provisions of the $3 million deal. I don't even know how to do a deal, so I have no idea what I'm talking about, but break things down and do them. So that's a little bit of advice. Well-being, look, there's a lot we could say about well-being. We could spend a whole hour on well-being, but let me just say this, because I struggle with all of these things. This sort of self-management stuff is difficult for me. I would say this: every minute of every day is a choice that we make. And sometimes we feel trapped and we think, oh, this supervisor is crazy, this client is crazy, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And the truth is, we choose to do much of what we choose. And I think for myself, I think I've spent a lot of time over the course of my life blaming others and blaming circumstance for things that actually I could control. And so, our decisions really do reveal our priorities. And so I am trying to be much more mindful of my own decisions. I talked about Zita and Carlos when they were in New York a few weeks ago or so. I'm trying to make better decisions for myself that are more in line with what I really, really want. There's a great story of a guy, a pretty famous American tennis player, but I forget his name. His name is Marty something. And he was so good that he got to the finals in the US Open, and he was suffering from a very, very severe depression. I'll run along here. And he was in the cab with his wife going to Arthur Ashe Stadium, right? He was going to play against Roger Federer in the finals, right? But he was really struggling. He was really, really sick. And she said to him, you don't have to do this. And he said, what do you mean I don't have to do this? Of course I have to do this. The press is there. my sponsors are there, my teammates are there, my coaches are there. Of course I have to do this. And then he said, wait a minute, I don't have to do this. And it was really like an incredible moment that he decided, I don't feel well enough to play. I'm not going to do this. And so I just think that everybody, and I say this to myself as much as anyone, to really realize how much control we have, stop blaming other people, and make choices that fit for you, make choices that that are really those that support your own goals and your own mission for yourself. I want to just say a little bit about relationships. Again, there's a million things I could say. The first is working with others. The rule of civility, the rule of accountability. If you make a mistake, step up, admit you made the mistake, try to fix it the best you can. Don't deflect responsibility, don't blame circumstances, don't blame other people. Everybody makes mistakes. Whether you're a professional or not is not about whether you make mistakes, it's how you manage them. It's about learning how to work with people who are different from ourselves. In the US, and I suspect this is happening in Mexico and other places as well, clients are really demanding more diversity in terms of gender, race, socioeconomic background, sexual orientation, sexual identity. I don't know how far advanced you are on that, but clients are really forcing law firms to do better with respect to diversity. Why? Well, partly because it's the right thing to do, but even more because they realize they get quantitatively better results when there's a broad-based range of opinions that are heard at the table. So learn how to embrace those. Learn how to be supervised effectively and learn how to supervise effectively. And the final thing I want to say about working with others is to always remember the service orientation of what we do. Why do people come to lawyers? They come to lawyers because they have a personal or professional problem or personal or professional goal. We are a means to an end. Nobody, charming as you all are, nobody comes to a lawyer because they like coming to lawyers, okay? That's just a fact. It's not like, I have a blog I want to write called It Ain't Brunch, okay? I like brunch, okay? I go out to brunch, I have a little cocktail, I come home and I take a nap. I love that. Nobody comes to us for the experience of coming to a lawyer. They come to us with very specific goals. We are a means to an end. If you always remember the service orientation of what we do, I think you will be much better with your clients. You always want to effectively communicate. Communication is one of our main tools. You want to think and speak and write clearly in an organized fashion. You always want to think of your objectives. You always want to remember who your audience is, and you want to learn how to listen with intentionality. This is a statistic that I found very striking, that we hear only about 50% of what is said to us, and we forget half of that in 24 hours. Now, even if that's only half true, think of how much knowledge and information we're leaving on the table. So you can really train yourself to listen with greater intentionality. And the final thing is about your public professional persona, how you present to the outside. Whether you do that through social media, whether you do that through bar association activities, whether you do that through teaching, through writing, you want to get through networking, you want to get your name out there, and you want to be a player. By which I mean you want to be a person. When I think of, oh, I need a lawyer in Mexico to deal with an antitrust matter, boom, I know who that person is because that person has been a player in this field, and I understand that she's a leader. I want to say one final word about networking, and then I'll shut up. Networking is I think often misunderstood. I think we make it too complex. Networking is what we've been doing our whole lives. It's meeting people that share common interests for a relationship that is mutually beneficial. I think a lot of people think that networking is, I go out and I try to meet people to get business, or because I want a new job, or because I want some consulting. No, it's not about that. Ultimately, those benefits flow. But what you really, really want to do is just connect with people that you like, that you have something in common with. And ultimately, information will flow through that network that you build. So that's all I got. Here's a picture of my book, and here's my email address again. And I know I've spoken a little bit longer than I said I would, but I want to thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for being here and listening to me.
Well, Tony, thank you so much. You leave us with so many tasks, and we really have too much to learn yet, which is great because, as you just mentioned, every day we learn, or at least we should learn. And I think that the book is absolutely worth it to read. I had the chance to read your first books about the American legal structure, it was fantastic. So, but this one is really, you know, just how to play with the rules in order to become a successful lawyer, but above all, a successful and happy person. I think this is the most important above all. Now I open the floor for questions. I don't know whether anyone have questions or remarks on Tony's excellent presentation. You can raise your hands or even just unmute and jump in.
I never know if it's good or bad when there are no questions.
Yeah, Carlos have a question. Go ahead, but I need you to unmute you.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to thank Tony for giving us this speech. It was great having you here for about 50 minutes, about an hour. And I made my notes here for me because, as you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, it's not only for law students, but it's for everyone that wants to be a good professional person while working or while growing up, right? So yeah, I think it is very important, the fundamentals, the self-management and the relationship that you mentioned, to apply it to our daily lives and to get to know ourselves better, to keep growing and accomplishing our goals. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you very much again.
Thank you, Carlos. And that means a lot to me coming from you, not only because I know how smart you are and thoughtful, but because you're not a lawyer. And it was nice that it still resonated with you and that I had something for you to take away as well. So thank you so much.
Anybody else? I don't know, Victoria, as a woman in our law firm, and as Tony mentioning diversity in the law firm, what are your thoughts?
Let me unmute. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you. I really like the presentation. A lot of things that you said, I like connect them with a philosophy that I really like, that is stoicism. And like they say, don't talk about your philosophy, embrace it and embody it. But I just want to mention that you remind me a lot of that, like a lot of what I read, like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and a lot of them. And that's like a parenthesis. And now with the question, I feel like...
Can I just say, Victoria, I have never been mentioned in the same sentence as Marcus Aurelius. So thank you for that. That is a life-changing moment.
Yeah, it's really great. Yeah, because a lot of things that you said really are like connected with stoicism. And now with the question, well, I think nowadays it's really important the incorporation of women, the diversity, and like really saw the problem and try to fix it, or I don't know how to explain. But as a woman in law, I mean, I'm just starting my career, but I think it's really important to be part of the law, because like I don't know how to explain it, but since all the times we have been part of history, so it's important that we are really present, not just in paper, not just like mentioned at the bottom of the lines, but really participate on the decisions and really participate on our society and our like the decisions that are made. And I'm just really happy to be part of them, and I think that's it.
So Victoria, I'm really happy to see you. I see that there are mostly men in the room, a few women, maybe, yeah, about a third women maybe. And I know that in Mexico, as in many other places, including the US, there's still a lot of gender inequality. What we have in the US is very bizarre. First of all, at least in the US, law is the least diverse profession, which was shocking to me. I heard that only recently, and I was really shocked by that. And it's particularly unfortunate because, as you were saying,
I don't know. We can't hear you, Tony. We can't hear you.
Is it better now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I think my headphones
AirPod.
died.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I think it's just really, really important that everybody embrace this idea. And this is what's great, I think, about the fact that clients are insisting on this really pushes people. So I have to say something really interesting, which is I've been running a program on leadership for women in law. It's actually ending at the end of this week. And Creel, you know, the firm Creel,
Yeah.
they sent 30 lawyers to this program, and 30 female lawyers. And I was like, wow, that's a commitment that they made to the diversity and to building leadership capability. And we really need everyone to buy into this. It can't be that just women mentor women. It can't be that just women support women. It can't be that people of color mentor people of color only. So it has to really be people in the mainstream who realize that the firm, their service to their clients and society as a whole will benefit from a truly more diverse and inclusive profession. And I think there's so much that we all can do to, you know, just let me say something to the guys. If you have an opportunity, if there's someone, a woman in your office, and I know there's all this concern about inappropriateness and the Me Too movement. I don't know if that's been a big deal in Mexico, but forget about it. If there's a woman who you think would benefit from mentoring, take her under your wing. Try to give her opportunities. Let her come to meetings. Let her have a voice. And it's the same thing with Indigenous people, people of color, other minorities, religious minorities that you might have in your firms. Really take it upon yourself, knowing that it will benefit the firm and it will benefit society, to really bring these people in and hear their voices. Because, you know, we had a panel a couple of weeks ago with 4 people of color, and we have in the US we have this big problem with people of color in the profession. They don't exist in large numbers, and when they do, they don't make it to partner. They get frustrated, they get annoyed, they don't get the support they need. And so, you know, you think of the loss of potential. And so there are so many small ways in which you can help by being thoughtful and just trying to help someone along who looks a little bit different from you. And I think it's great when strong women enter the profession, and I think it's even greater when strong men support them. So, so that's my plea for all of you.
Thanks, Tony. Very, very nice and important message. Anyone else? A remark or a question? If not, again, I really want to thank you for your time, Tony. It was fantastic. I absolutely recommend to buy the book, available on Amazon. And Priscilla, do we have the acknowledgement? Yeah, and just like any invite speaker in our bar, I would like to acknowledge to Tony for being part of this presentation, this event. And hopefully we can, once COVID is really over, we can give like a physical space to this fantastic subject, which I think that we could spend hours and hours discussing and speaking about. Thank you again, Tony, so much. And hopefully we can see you and welcome you again soon.
I hope so. Thank you so much, Zita. And thanks to all of you. Have a great night. Hope to see you in person.
You too. Thank you, Tony.
Ciao, ciao.
And
Bye.
gracias por todos por su tiempo y por su interés. Gracias. Nos vemos.
Gracias a todos.
Muchas gracias. Hasta luego.
Thank you.
Gracias, chao.
Ciao, ciao.
Hasta luego.
Bye.